Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We got a special episode today, a little bit atypical from what we normally do for the power rankings. As you all know, I'm on vacation here in Vegas for the World Series of Poker, and it has not gone well whatsoever. So send me some of that run good, please, if you're new to the channel. Normally we do a whiteboard kind of thing, so this one's gonna be a little bit different. Send me some run good, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, all that fun stuff. Gonna be a little different. You're not gonna see it all up behind me. I'm gonna go through each team one by one, go over a little bit. It's been a pretty wild week of baseball. If we kind of look at the standings as a whole, most teams are 5-5 over their last 10, 6-4, 4-6. It's very even. The power rankings is one of the hardest times I've had doing it, all the way up to number 2. Like, let's be honest, we all know who's gonna be number 1, but all the way up to number 2 has been super difficult. It's not been easy, so go easy on me, guys. It's not been easy power rankings, and we kind of are going at it a little different than normal, but we're going to jump into it. Number 30. These are going to be backwards, I guess. Maybe they'll come out all right in the video, but they're going to be backwards. Kansas City Royals, 1-2 against Cleveland. They went 2-1 against the Dodgers, so they had a series win, 500 week, but they've been bottom now a couple weeks in a row. Haven't shown too much to get me out of there. Maybe they can go on somewhat of a winning team. Might have a new contender possibly for last place if the Royals can put up another 500 a week, because this team dropped a couple of spots. Went 1-2 against the Dodgers, 1-2 against Detroit. Colorado Rockies just don't have it anymore. I'm just gonna say here, I'm in my hotel room. I'd show out the window, but it's super bright, etc. So it's not good for the camera. You'll see a somewhat photo from my room as the thumbnail. Next up, we got the Oakland A's. They've actually jumped a couple of spots. They went 1-2 against the Yankees, and then they beat the White Sox. So pretty exciting. The A's have somewhat put together a decent 20 games or so. Nothing atrocious, and maybe they're trending in the right direction. So I'm giving them number 28. That'd be pretty exciting for that team. Next up, we got Chicago White Sox, 2-2 against the Angels, so somewhat of a decent week to start it off. Got against a tough team, somewhat tough, the Angels, and then they blow it against Oakland. This division probably wide open. I always keep thinking that the White Sox are going to turn it on a little bit and get things going, but Lance Lynn just doesn't seem to have what he had before. The rotation doesn't seem to be performing the way they have in the past, so we might start to see a Chicago team that is in the basement of this division if they can't start turning things together. Next up, number 26, we got the Washington Nationals. Nationals had a good week, beat two decent teams, 2-1 against Seattle, 2-1 against Philadelphia, and they got smashed by Philly on Saturday, but they came out with a tight 5-4 win today, and they had a nice win on Friday. So a little bit of excitement. This team's young, seems to be the best team in this bottom row. And if we're talking, if you're a fan of the channel and you've seen these videos before, the bottom 6 teams are the bottom row, and that means we have a new team in the bottom row right now. I had to put them back in the bottom row. The Pittsburgh Pirates, just something's falling out of this. Even though they went 3-0 against the San Diego Padres, they went 1-2 against Milwaukee. Like, maybe I could being a little bit too harsh on them, but the way this division is starting to shape up, some of these other teams who have been worse are starting to look a lot better, and the Pirates just put in some massive lose streaks. That big series sweep at the beginning of the week was big, but not doing it against Milwaukee really hurt them. In my opinion, they're the worst team in this division now, and it's not even, maybe it's close. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Next up, we have the New York Mets, 1-2 against Milwaukee early in the week. So that was a series that if they wanted a shot into this wild card, they needed to do it. Didn't win it. They're bouncing back right now. Their Sunday night game is underway, and they got a big lead on San Fran. So it's expected maybe they'll have a 2-1 series, 500 week. But man, 500 is not going to cut it. They're 18 games back from Atlanta. Maybe the last wild card. They got to go on a little bit of a win streak here. We need to start seeing some 600 baseball from the New York Mets if anything is going to be said and done. Next up, we have the San Diego Padres. And guys, I had written down the order and I switched it up a little bit, so like the numbers on my sheet are a little wrong. So I'm kind of forgetting where we are. So maybe I should be a little bit better on that. So we're like 6 in. This is like number 23. We got Padres. Rough week for the Padres. 0-3 against Pittsburgh. 1-2 against Cincinnati. I had the Padres. Probably should have Padres bottom row, honestly, instead of Pirates. That's probably where the Padres should be. And what else? I don't know what to say. This team's been atrocious. Their one win this week, they put up like 12 runs. We saw the offense that we would expect to see on most days, but other than that, they're not doing it. And ahead of them, I have the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals, atrocious beginning of the year, but this is a kind of week that I think that team can get momentum behind. They went 1-2, losing to the Astros, a tough team, World Series champs, right? But then they beat the Yankees this weekend, 2-1 series, and so that's a pretty big jump. I think this is a team that went 500 against two better opponents in a division where they can start to win. If they win in the division, they're gonna be solid and get things done. So pretty exciting. Moving up a few spots here, we got Detroit Tigers. Detroit went 2-2 against Texas, big series. 2-1 against Colorado, taking care of business, lacking a sweep. Maybe they don't have the depth of rotation to be able to pull sweeps off, but they put up some massive runs playing against Colorado this weekend. The one game they had 2 grand slams, which was pretty exciting to watch. Next up, we got the Chicago Cubs, guys. 0-3 against Philly. 1-2 against. Put the Cubs. Honestly, off the top of my head, I can't remember who the Cubs are playing. Oh, Cleveland. They're playing right now, and I think they're getting destroyed. That reminds me. They're playing right now, getting destroyed. So not a good series for the Cubs. Cubs, probably another one of those teams. Maybe I have potentially too high. I wasn't ready to put the Cardinals ahead of them. I do think they're better than the Pirates, but this Central National League division is just wild. Interesting there. Next up, we got Seattle Mariners. 1-2 against Washington, so that just goes to show Washington's a little bit hot right now. And this is the second bottom row. This is capping it off. 2-1 against Tampa, so Tampa's shown that they're a little bit human now. Seattle still not doing anything better than 500. I think I've talked about this multiple times. And at number 19, Seattle just isn't doing it properly at all. And that brings us to number 18. Kind of going on the fly here. Look at this. Even though I don't know if it's backwards for you guys, but if it is, this one is not backwards. We got the Angels. 2-2 against Chicago White Sox. 1-2 against Arizona. Maybe a little bit of a good week. Arizona, they put up a good fight against them, and Arizona's proven to be a much better team than I'd give them credit for early in the season. We'll see that later in a little bit. But the Angels got to do a little bit better. They got a couple teams to hop. They're in a thick of a wild card race, and this is probably one of the biggest drops of the week at number 17. We got the Toronto Blue Jays. Just atrocious week for the Blue Jays. I don't care if they won the series against San Fran at the beginning, 2-1. Don't care. Losing all games to Boston, including Saturdays where they just blew the game on I don't know if people saw it in our Discord. We talked about it. Jays just getting called out at home in the 9th inning, just a tough game. And now they are 0-7 against Boston this season. And I don't know the record off the top of my head against the division, but it's atrocious. It's probably one of the worst in the MLB when it comes to the division. And if you're not winning your division, you're not making the playoffs. And at this rate, I don't see the Jays making the playoffs. Their bullpen has just been getting us killed. Next up, 16, Cleveland Guardians. 2-1 against Kansas City, 2-1 against the Cubs. And Cleveland, they're kind of going under the radar, staying in the hunt. A couple games back, maybe 1 game back, 2 games back now against Minnesota for that division. And this division is definitely theirs for the taking, because Minnesota has been struggling. And Cleveland kind of has that quiet team. Jose Ramirez going under the radar, having an amazing season for the Guardians. Got to give him a shout out. He's putting this team on their back. The rotation's doing all right. And Cleveland keeping them in the hunt, that's for sure. 15. We got the Boston Red Sox. Moving up a couple of spots. I still don't really see them as a playoff team, even though they keep manhandling the Blue Jays. They got swept by Miami early in the week, so it's just a 500 week, and they're playing like a 500 baseball team. Not too much is changing from that, so I kind of expect them to somewhat stay in that spot. Next up, we got the Houston Astros, guys. And Astros, wild. It's been a wild season for them. Dealing with tons of injuries, but they had a really good week. 2-1 against St. Louis, 2-1 against Texas. Maybe I can probably move them up a few spots, but I just think a lot of these other teams that we're going to talk about are more of a lock-in for playoffs. They've been playing maybe a little bit more consistently better. Astros had a good week. If they can follow this up with another good week, then sure, they're going to move up a couple of spots because of these teams now that we're kind of getting to, and we're going to start getting into the second row here in a minute. This is when we're starting to talk about playoffs, right? And the playoffs are up for grabs, definitely in the wild card races. Number 14, we got Minnesota, division leader right now. Kind of trying to look at my notes here. Don't know what it says for Minnesota for their first series, but I do know they had a big series win against Baltimore, so I gave them a little bit of a boost. Sorry, 0-3 against Atlanta. That's where it was. Couldn't handle it. They did play Atlanta pretty well, but I still, those past couple of weeks for them, not been good. So I'm still holding a bit against them. Clearly, Cleveland's a little bit close to them. And yeah, Minnesota's got some work to do. Big series win against Baltimore this weekend. I know Baltimore fans are hurting from that one. Number 13, Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers 2-1 against against the Mets. 2-1 against Pittsburgh. Turning it around, and I think now they're close back into that division lead. I think they're 1-2 games behind Cincinnati, but they're starting to get back into winning ways. They had a long, rough stretch, and it hurt, and I still don't know if they have the offense to really get them through, but they had a good week, and we could see them borderline. They're definitely going to be fighting for playoffs, and with that wild card race, definitely up for grabs, because a lot of the teams in this National League are just like, they seem weaker than the records have been, and it's just such a parity league, this league so far. Number 12, so this is starting to get into the second row if you're a fan. We got the Miami Marlins. Miami started the week off 3-0 against Boston, and then they got beat up by their division rivals in the Braves, right? So guys, I'm just struggling here, sorry. This is what happens when I'm not on set and things are a little weird. I'm doing it live in Vegas. Just wanted to keep you guys going. I do believe this is number 11 that we're on now. Just kind of looking back here. I feel like we're missing a team maybe, but let me just hold it up here. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know, we might have went too many in one row, but we're definitely into number 11 right now. So sorry, Marlins are number 11. If you're making it this far, I appreciate it. You're definitely a fan of the channel, because this is not normally how these go, right? But Miami, 500 week, got beat up by the Braves. Braves pretty much walking away with it at this point, and not too much else to say. But Marlins taking care of business against the teams that are worse than them. They're pitching, really getting it done. And yeah, what else did I say? Number 10, Dodgers 2-1 against Colorado, 1-2 against Kansas City. 500 week against terrible teams. Not exactly what you want to see as a Dodgers fan, but they got it done. They're 500. They're getting wins. They're staying in the playoff hunt. They're a good team, and as long as this team can get in the playoffs, which they should at this rate, it's pretty disastrous if they don't. They're definitely a top team, right? Top 10. It's hard to argue that some of these teams below them or deserve to be higher. Like, we're starting to get in the top 10. It feels kind of gross talking about some of these teams in the top 10, but it's the truth, right? Yeah, so number 9. I didn't think I would have this team this high at the beginning of the season, but it's hard not to. We got Cincinnati Reds 2-1 against Baltimore to start the week, 2-1 against San Diego. So just winning series. This team's been hot, red hot, pun intended. But yeah, I don't think that it's a fluke either. So that's why I'm starting to move them up. And honestly, I could see them continuing to move up if they continue to win. The pitching is young, it's talented. The bats are deep and talented and young. Like, this is a young team. I think Cincinnati has a bright future based on what I've seen as of late. Next up, New York Yankees, and this is kind of like what I'm talking about. Cincinnati could easily start hopping some of these teams because we got the Yankees, even though they had a 500 week, they went 2-1 against Oakland, they went 1-2 against St. Louis. Like, Yankees continue to kind of be mediocre, but they're a 550 team in a tough division, and a team that on any given night, I think any pitcher they send to the mound gives them a chance to win. They got the depth there. They got the depth, potentially risky when you're talking about bats, but I expect some. If it's any question at the trade deadline, Yankees are going to handle it. Same kind of thing with the Dodgers and some of these other teams. They're going to get handled. So I'm not starting to sweat too much. Next up, number 7. They had a bad week, San Fran, but I'm not going to punish them yet. I'm saying I'm a lot. That's okay. Not going to punish them yet. They're kind of holding it. I kind of shot them up. I might start dragging them back a little bit if they keep this kind of week going. They went 1-2 against Toronto, 1-2 against the Mets. Mets are a team that I'm giving credit for. Mets are a good team, even though they're low in the power rankings. They're going to give you a fight every night. They just haven't been able to put it together. Maybe I shouldn't hold that against them too much in the power rankings, but I do. Played against Toronto, same kind of team. Playing against two teams. This league's so parity, it's insane. But the Giants have shown that they can compete very well against these top teams, and we saw it when they went on that huge win streak. Number 6. We got Philadelphia Phillies, and this is kind of crazy because they don't have the best record. They lost to Washington this weekend, but they had a great series against the Cubs. They swept the Cubs early in the week, and I think they're finally putting it together. I expect them to keep playing about 600 baseball. I think they're going to be top wildcard team in the National League. They're just a good team. A lot of issues maybe in the pitching. That's where they're going to run into troubles. But I think this offense, as we saw in that second Saturday game, can bail them out. Maybe that's not enough, though. As we saw in the Washington series, the pitching did somewhat struggle. Maybe that'll hold them back. For now, I'm going to keep them there. Number 5, I'm dropping them one spot. A little bit of a rough week for the Baltimore Orioles, 1-2. In Cincinnati, 1-2 against Minnesota. We saw some concern in 2 areas. Pitching a little bit in the first series against Cincinnati. We saw pitching give up a lot of runs. But then we saw them come back in the series against Minnesota. But on the other hand, the offense went dead. A little bit of what we talked about early in the season, some concerns with the Orioles were with those two things, how they would work. And this is really the first 2 weeks they're starting to show some struggle. So I'm not going to hold too much against them that. We're going to see how they bounce back in the next 2 weeks, and maybe they'll be back in the thick of things. We'll see how that goes. Number 4, we got the Arizona Diamondbacks, and guys, Arizona 1-2 against Tampa, 2-1 against LA Angels. I've been holding this team back for a while. I still am not sure, but it's so tough. It really is tough when we get up here because any of these teams can be interchangeable. But they're 500 on a week here against 2 pretty playoff-bound teams. Gallen got beat around, and that was a loss. So normally he's solid for a win, so it could have been a 4-2 week. In Arizona, they're kind of cemented in the top of this division right now, and I don't know if the Dodgers will catch them. Arizona, very competitive. I like what I'm seeing right now from them. Number 3, I'm just keeping them there. 2-2 against Detroit, 1-2 against Houston. They're hanging on to number 3 by a thread right now, I think. Any of these teams that can get hot, that's the problem, though. Teams 2 through 15, no one's really gone on a massive win streak as of recently, other than Cincinnati, who we've seen come from like the bottom to the top, and Atlanta, who we know where they are. Texas, it's been solid. They've been like pretty steady all season long. A little bit of a losing week, a 3-4 week, not too bad. Losing to Houston, team on their tail, but for the most part, so far they've had it. So Texas, I'm not gonna take this week, maybe a little bit of last week and hold it. Still think they're a top team, and they're gonna give everyone a run for their money. Number 2, Tampa Bay, 2-1 against Arizona, 1-2 against Seattle, 500 week. It's been about a month now from the peak where they were crushing absolute solid number 1. It's been a little bit iffy, but I just can't figure out who I would put number 2 if it wasn't Tampa Bay. I couldn't figure it out. So I'm going to keep them there until someone else shines, because Tampa Bay is playing similar to the rest of the teams in these top 10, but Tampa Bay has shown early in the season they're capable. Maybe some issues in the pitching has been coming to light, but I'm not holding that yet. And yeah, number 1, guys, it's obvious, no questions about it. Atlanta, another 8-game win streak they're currently on. it's just been surreal what they've been up to. Honestly, Atlanta's been crushing it, and I expect them to do that. Right now, they're by far the favorites, the best team in the MLB. I don't think there's any question about it. I think I might have held them back a bit too long, mainly holding against them that they got swept by the Blue Jays, but Blue Jays are a team that can sweep anyone, so that shouldn't have been too much of a surprise. But yeah, guys, there you have it. We're in Vegas. We're doing a impromptu power rankings that I'm just gonna post. There's gonna be some hiccups in there. If you made it this far, you're the man. Like, you really support this channel, and I love you guys. If you have any questions or anything, you can get in contact with me directly. We have the Discord going constantly. Maybe go back. I'll try and put it in the description. If not, it'll be in other videos. It's always in the comments description. And you can get in contact with me on Twitter too. iHeartSports on Twitter. But guys, thanks for watching. Maybe I'll do a quick fan of the cards. This is the bottom row with Kansas City being the bottom side. Got bottom row 6 there. The next row up, worst team I have is the Mets, and then it kind of goes Senio, that kind of thing. Middle in row, teams that are like borderline playoffs right now. Of course, we got the Twins on the bottom side of that, and maybe I have the Twins on. It should be like this, but guys, this is just impromptu. I'm just having fun. I hope you guys like it. Second row, playoff row. And of course, we got the top row of the 6 teams, and I don't even have it in the proper order, which makes it even more embarrassing as I'm doing this just to fill time. I don't know, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll do another one of this next Sunday. And yeah, hopefully you liked it. Wanted to keep the ball rolling, as everything in the channel has been awesome. Thanks for watching. Peace out.